Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. This is our last week of school and this is our last social studies lesson. I just want to say it has been a privilege and a pleasure to teach with you all year long. And I hope you remember some great things about this year. We learned a lot. We did our Native American unit, we did mapping Black history, we did our compass and mapping unit. That was really fun, where we got outside and learned directions. We learned all about communities, and recently we've been learning about voting and also Black history and the Black Lives Matter movement. So it's been a wonderful year, and I'm going to miss you all so much. I hope you have a great summer. Hopefully I can get a haircut soon, because this is a mess on top of my head. It just keeps growing and growing. So today I have a book that is called The Youngest Marcher, and it kind of follows along in our civil rights movement about what young people have done and can do in the world to make a change. I didn't get a chance to read these, but if you would like to read more books about voting and learn about how that works, the system works, and whatnot, this is an awesome book, Duck for President, super fun. The author is Doreen Cronin and Betsy Lewin, so that's a great book. And also, I just got this book, really amazing, Vote for Our Future by Margaret McNara and Micah Player. So you could look for those at the King County Library. I think you can still order library books on their website, and that you can pick them up. So those might be something you want to check out. All right, so I'm going to make my screen a little bit smaller, and I'm going to talk about the book we're reading today. I'll read the book, and then we'll just do a wrap up at the end. All right, here we go. So the book I'm reading today is called The Youngest Marcher. It's by Cynthia Levinson and illustrated by Vanessa Brantley Newton. And this is the story. It's a true story, so this is nonfiction, of Audrey Faye Hendricks, a young civil rights activist. And I pulled up a picture here. This is a picture of her when she was a child in the 1950s. So this is about 70 years ago that this took place. All right, The Youngest Marcher. Make that a little bigger. Okay. Whenever Mike flew into town, Audrey and her mama cooked barbecued ribs, stewed greens, sweet potato souffle, and Audrey's favorite, hot rolls baptized in butter. That sounds good. Other folks knew Mike as Martin or Dr. King. The Hendricks used his nickname. They did the same with other ministers too, like Fred Shuttlesworth and Jim Bevel. After Mike blessed the feast, Mama expected Audrey to keep still during supper. But when grown-ups talked about wiping out segregation laws that kept black and white people apart in Birmingham, she just had to speak up. Audrey intended to go places and do things like everybody else. I want to eat my ice cream inside Newberry's. I want to sit downstairs at the Alabama. I don't want hand-me-down school books. But stools at the counter, plush movie theater seats, books so fresh they crackle when you open them, those were for white children. Hush, hissed Mama. 9-year-old children should not speak in front of company, especially ministers like Mike, Fred, and Jim, who were bringing dreams of justice. Audrey knew all about segregation. She knew how to pay the driver at the front of the bus and then step off and walk around to the back door. Drink from the fountain with the dirty bowl and the warm water. Use the freight elevator at department stores downtown. Front row seats, cool water elevators, and white-gloved operators. Laws said those were for white folks. Every Monday night, Audrey and her mama and daddy and her aunts, uncles, and cousins joined neighbors and friends at Fred's church for worship, fellowship, and testimony. She sang and swayed along with the movement choir, her voice spirited and spiritual. Black and white together we shall overcome. For once she didn't have to sit still. Then came testimonies. White store owners won't hire me. Ku Kluxers chased me. Policemen called me names. The hateful stories made Audrey squirm. She tried to tell her mama, "That's not right." Shh. How could Mama expect her to hush? She had to make things right. But what could she do? When Mike visited Fred's church, thousands of people crowded around to hear him preach. In a voice as taut as steel cables and smooth as glass, he intoned, "Segregation is morally wrong and sinful." "That's true." Fired up, Audrey sat taller. "An unjust law is no law at all," he proclaimed. Audrey had listened to Mike explain his plan at her supper table, and he knew what he meant. If a law is unjust, disobey it. Sit down inside Newberry's. Picket those white stores. March to protest those unfair laws. Why, even marching was against the law. Then get arrested. "Fill the jails," Mike exclaimed. "Fill Birmingham's jails so full the policemen can't squeeze in one more person. Pack cells so tight that police will have to quit arresting people for demanding their rights." Audrey just knew Mike's plan would work. She twisted in her pew so she could see which grown-ups would walk down the aisle, volunteer for jail. But they mostly stayed put, eyes staring at their feet, hands on their knees. Feet, hands, and knees didn't move. "Fill the jails," Mike pleaded. Meeting after meeting, but heads shook. All around here, Audrey heard, "No, best not break those segregation laws. Boss man will fire me. Landlord will evict me. Policeman will beat me." If nobody protested, Mike's plan would fail. Police could keep arresting anyone, anytime, for anything forever. Audrey would never be able to go places and do things like everyone else. One night, Jim announced a new idea. If grown-ups won't do it, fill the jails with children. Audrey leaped to her feet. "I want to go to jail," she declared. Mama looked deep and saw that Audrey's eyes begged. "Please." "Okay," Mama said. Audrey strutted down the aisle. She was going to jail. My goodness. Audrey was standing up for what she believed in. 2 mornings later, she put on a fresh-pressed pinafore and shiny Mary Janes and turned down socks. Protesters got to look nice. In the meantime, her daddy brought her a game to help her pass the time in jail. Her mama and daddy took her by Center Street Elementary to tell her teacher she'd be absent, maybe for a whole week. Miss Willis wrapped her arms around her. Audrey knew she was proud of her. She said goodbye to her grandparents. "You'll be fine," her grandmother said. She knew Audrey would be brave, so Audrey did. Then her mama and daddy drove her to 16th Street Baptist Church, where the young children were gathering. Even before she reached the door, Audrey heard loud voices chanting freedom songs. Inside, hundreds of big kids called out to friends and crowded around signs for their high schools. Parker, Carver, her head swiveled. Where were the sign for Center Street Elementary? She was the only protester from her school, the youngest child in the whole church, and she knew no one. Audrey huddled by her parents in the basement. But when Jim lined her up with others, 2 by 2, and the doors swung open, Audrey straightened up. She was going to break a law and go to jail to help make things right. Wow, Audrey sounds so brave. What do you think? Would you be brave enough to stand up for what you believe in? Clutching a protest sign in one hand and her game in the other, Audrey marched out the door. She stomped and sang, "Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Half a block from the church, a white policeman stopped Audrey. He pointed toward a police van. Sentence, 1 week in juvenile hall. Oh no. A matron locked Audrey into a day room with 24 other girls, all older, bigger, all strangers. Audrey sat down and slipped the cover off her game. I told you to sit down, the matron yelled. Audrey jumped. She didn't remember standing up. The matron dragged her to a dark, empty room. When I tell you something, you do it, she commanded, or I'll leave you here. Oh my goodness. Trembling, Audrey quietly followed the matron to the day room, put away her game, lay down her head, and cried. Jail was harder than she thought, and she wasn't fine after all. By evening, Audrey was hungry and tired. For dinner, soupy, oily, tasteless grits. At night, a bare mattress with one thin sheet for a cover. The next morning, oh no, no fresh underwear, no clean pinafore, and no toothbrush. Audrey and her cellmates were let outdoors into an empty concrete pen surrounded by high prison walls. The older girls talked together. Audrey wondered what her classmates were doing. Miss Willis would be keeping them busy. Every mealtime, Audrey stared at greasy grits. She could barely spoon them into her mouth, let alone swallow them. Every night, the cot's wire springs jabbed her. Every morning, she had nothing to do but sit alone with her game. Oh, I hope Audrey made the right decision. This sounds awful. In the afternoon, though, more kids crowded into the day room. Some days, many of them arrived sopping wet. A girl explained that firemen aimed powerful hoses at the children. Surging water spun them off their feet and down the street. But they got up, and they kept marching anyway, until they too were sent to jail. By Audrey's 5th day in detention, the police couldn't squeeze in one more person. We filled up all the rooms! We filled up all the rooms! Audrey practically jumped up and down. She was so proud. Watching television in the day room, she saw black people stroll straight into stores and restaurants like they belonged there. No one else could be sent to jail. Everything had changed. Excuse me. After 7 days, Audrey went home. Her mama and daddy wrapped their arms tight around her, washed the jail off her, and for dinner, hot rolls baptized in butter. 2 months later, the city of Birmingham wiped segregation laws clean off the books. Audrey licked her spoon clean at Newberry's counter like everybody else, black and white together, like we belong. So what Audrey and the other students did had changed the laws. They stood up for something, and eventually, with the help of people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, all those people, the laws got changed. So she stood up for it and did something to make a change. All right. I really liked that book. Really good to see how, not that long ago, only 60, 70 years ago, people really had to stand up and fight for what they believed in. And, we're seeing that same kind of messaging now with the Black Lives Matter movement. People are protesting and they are wanting their voices to be heard. They want laws to be changed, especially in regards to how police officers treat black people and people of color, because it hasn't been kind in the past. And so we can make a difference. We can change laws. We can stand up for what we believe in. All right. That's our Read Aloud today. Remember, if you want to read more about voting, Duck for President, or Vote for Our Future, are both great books. And leave me a comment about what you thought about today's story. If you didn't leave me a comment yesterday, let me know what your favorite social studies lessons were this year. Remember, lots of things we learned: Native American history, Black Lives Matter. We learned about communities all over the world. We learned about maps and compasses. We learned about the civil rights movement. Just all kinds of amazing things. All right, I've had so much fun with you guys. I really am going to miss you this summer, but have a great summer, and I will see you in the fall. All right, adios.